Hello, and welcome to the Monster Sanctuary Tournament Circuit. Today we're going to be casting the third place match of the third tournament of Season 1, United Nations. I'm Quarter.
I'm the SmugLookingBarrel, and this match is between FlowingJuffowup on the left and Equis on the right. So we've seen these are two very different teams. FlowingJuffowup is running the sort of breakout star of this tournament, which is the Charge Stack team, and Equis is running a very unorthodox debuff team, which is plans to not attack at all and just stall the opponent to death. Flowing, being higher seed, gets first turn, and leads with the lead that he's been using a lot during this tournament, sets up some buffs onto his Eagle, and is going to try and take something out. He needs to do as much damage as he can before Equis can start sending up his buffs.
Hasn't got a bad shout at taking down the Yowie, but it doesn't look like it's quite enough to take it down. Still goes for it, but thanks to... Oh, it just manages to take
the
down
burn. Yowie having reasonable attack thanks to life overload, working against it here, while the burn is able to do enough damage to take it out. So Equis brings in Thornish, is able to get the regeneration up. King Blob and Druid Oak both have Remunerate, allowing them to gain regeneration whenever they apply a debuff, and they apply debuffs very fast. So if Flowing isn't able to actually get kills, his damage will be erased quickly by those buffs.
We can assume that this is a Hexing Rod, of course, on the Druid Oak as well, just making it that much more easy for it to apply debuffs, basically in Perpetuum, even if it has to throw out the occasional support move, since, of course, this is layered healing between the entire front line here, with, of course, some targeted Purifies from King Blob and Life Wave from Druid Oak. As you were saying, a very thick board from Equis, but it's definitely being put to the test here as the pressure is being put on it by Flowing, definitely bringing that Thornish down, but down close is not enough as it goes right back up there, thanks to the combined healing efforts of Druid Oak and King Blob.
Yeah, Eagle has aging, so it'll slowly be gaining more power and more defense. But we see one of the strengths of Equis' team with all the poison debuffs and poison nerves from Thornish. It's able to start pressuring their mana. Now, Eagle, with Charged Up, has mana cost reduction, but this is probably the last turn where it'll be able to fire off a full power attack. And in fact, it's going to use its turn on an antidote.
That is going to keep its mana up, if nothing else.
Absolutely. But here, it looks like Thornish does not have Hexing Rod. Druid Oak certainly does, and it works really well with Druid Oak's Curse Chain passive, allowing those debuffs to be spread around. And here we see Druid Oak also has Demotivate, and with 4 stacks of weakness, that's really penalizing King Blob's healing. So that Restore healed for basically nothing, and Goblin Miner is still at risk of falling.
That's a very unfortunate thing. We're seeing here how the pressure from debuffs alone can really put the screws onto what otherwise is a very cohesive team composition. Obviously, it's a bit easier because, I mean, while Miner is certainly a powerful member of Flowing's current presence on this board, we still have Salahammer in to basically ease into those gaps, and it also potentially provides an option for Corb to come in more unpunished and actually attempt to break through some of what Equis is continuing to maintain on this board. Although at full shields, this is a lot to try to deal with.
Yeah, we saw on the first couple of turns, Eagle was able to actually one-hit kill Equis' monsters, and now it's not even projected to break through their shields. Just so many buffs and so much defense on Equis' monsters. Thornish, in particular, has 2 instances of disease control, which reduces the damage it takes by 8% for every debuff the attacker has. And that is really hurting here.
This makes all the restores that we're seeing coming out from Flowing's side look like you're basically bailing out a ship with a thimble when you see the constant reapplications of these. Any instance of weakness on your primary damage dealer can be absolutely devastating in a circumstance like this. And as you said, with Demotivate, that also makes you just that much more vulnerable in a lot of ways to what offenses there are on this particular lineup.
Yeah, Flowing here probably is going to need to wait for an Infinity stack to even have a chance of breaking through Thornish. And if it can't break through Thornish, Thornish can just use Protect every turn to keep the rest of Dos Equis' team alive. And Dos Equis can definitely continue to apply pressure with his debuffs, with his healing penalty, while Flowing tries to wait for infinity stacks. We're already at round 6, so one more full round, and they'll start showing up. But this is a case where getting the first turn is actually bad for Flowing. He will not get the first infinity stack until Dos Equis has had a turn with one.
Ooh, that means that that's just even more pressure for him, because that's, of course, another position where Dos Equis can just continue to just apply more stress and strain to Flowing's current board state, which, as we've previously established, really the onus is on Flowing to try to break this cycle. Dos Equis can just sort of sit here and wait.
Yeah. And we see, Flowing definitely has good monsters to bring in after a monster falls, but Madlord should not be discounted for that role as well. It also has the big Cataclysm ultimate that it can fire off, and if it is able to switch in after something faints, and so is at full health and can be buffed, it could also just come in and get 3 kills.
You're not wrong, especially given the fact that it has, I believe, a couple separate instances of dominance on its skill tree. That's only going to be making it more critical for Flowing to keep control of these debuffs, as we're seeing. That at least gives Flowing an immediate sort of path to, staying alive here, as we see constantly the back and forth of number of separate debuffs being applied and removed throughout this. Obviously, this does mean that proliferate instances, if they do exist. I don't remember if any of these particular monsters do.
I believe. I don't think so.
Okay.
Yeah. Now, Flowing has been doing a great job of getting up all of these, trying to keep the debuffs off him, but that means that what he hasn't been doing is pressuring Dos Equis' shield. His team can really easily heal his monsters back to full health, but he can't instantly replenish his shields. Ooh, that actually looks like a juicy Thunder Strike. It looks like that first Infinity stat coming in, he can get the kill on Thornish here.
This was what Flowing was waiting for, and if this lands a kill, then this is definitely going to mean that FlowingJuffowup is going to be in a much stronger situation for dealing with the rest of this board without having the mass protect, like keeping King Blob and Druid Oak as safe as they are. Obviously, there's still no slouch to take down in and of themselves, but it opens the board more up for Flowing.
Yeah, Flowing being so diligent in the previous turns, keeping the debuffs off means that he has an opportunity here to hopefully cleanse the debuffs on his Eagle with 2 actions from King Blob and Miner, and then get an attack off without any to drop something.
With the antidote, we do see a full removal of debuffs on Eagle. It does have a window here. It's a narrow one. It's going to require some good crits to actually score that kill, but it is looking like the best option here.
Yeah, the one thing Flowing has to worry about is Fish Scales. Fish Scales is a passive that Thornish has, which gives it a 35% chance when it takes a hit to inflict a bleed stack equal to the damage it took. And with a Thunder Strike, one-shotting Thornish through its entire shield, if it procs Fish Scales, that bleed dot will one-shot Eagle.
Ooh, bringing forcibly popping Phoenix immediately on Eagle would be a pretty catastrophic consequence of breaking Thornish in that instance.
Yeah, Flowing could counter that by waiting until after his Eagle attacks to use his King Blob, which has Purify, but that means he can't use it to remove the debuffs before he attacks. It seems like Flowing is trying to build up to the point where he can get a full team wipe with Thunderstorm. Definitely he's at the point now where he can kill any single one of Dos Equis' monsters, but it seems like he doesn't think that's good enough. And if Dos Equis isn't pressuring him, well, here it goes, 28,000 damage, and you see the reflect damage, only reflecting 20% of it, still almost enough to bring Eagle down.
We did get a bleed, though, that is looking like the fish scale that you mentioned.
Yeah, it might not have been the proc itself, but we see Madlord coming in, firing off a huge Cataclysm, 4 stacks of Infinity, and all the debuff damage now starting to add up, takes down the King Blob, and that's Flowing's debuff removal gone outside of potions. So Flowing brings in his Manticore. We see an interesting choice of ultimate, Ion Beam. Normally Manticore's are on Cataclysm, but Ion Beam is much bigger damage on a single target. Now, over the course of all of this, Miner has been building up a ton of charge stacks, so it could use those here to get one big attack off. So this turn is going to be very crucial for Flowing.
I feel like target allocation is still an important thing here. Obviously, the Mad Lord is a huge kill me quickly sort of option that is very important to take down, given how much damage it is immediately thrown into Flowing's team here. But my concern is the board state that will happen after that, because as we were discussing, Vasuki has its own means through which to make FlowingJuffowup really hate having all of these debuffs. And now, without the Purify, as you mentioned, those are only going to be stacking up from this point, outside of course, of antidote usages.
Yeah. Also, this means that Dos Equis will have Druid Oak in its final 3. We have not seen Druid Oak Ultimate yet, which leads me to believe it has Gift of Life, which can revive both of Dos Equis' other monsters. Now, they revive without the Infinity stacks? Ooh, that's a big Hades. Both Manticore and Miner fall from the debuff damage. And now Flowing's in big trouble. He is not running Revive on his Elder Gel.
Ooh, so this means that at this point, FlowingJuffowup is down to just these 2 monsters for the remainder of this. We do still have our 5 Infinity stacks. As you say, if there are KOs on this side, there will be no immediate revives. Would you see that Juffowup is going straight for the Oak, attempting to land the Fireball, but whiffing it?
Yeah, the 20% miss from that Spell Shield buff really coming in. It looks like that hit was predicted to knock Druid Oak out, but it lives another day. And with 6 stacks of Infinity now, everyone's monsters are just doing so much damage. And at this point, Flowing with just one monster left forfeits. So we see an adaptation from Flowing. He's dropped his Goblin Miner and is running Scorch. Scorch is another monster that has Restore, so it can help out with the debuff removal. But it doesn't have the crazy charge stack application.
No, you're right. It doesn't have as much of the same charge stack effect. It also does have a bit more of a debuff synergy inside this comp as well, with Salahammer providing some burn synergy, I believe.
Yeah.
It's not a monster that I get to see as often, though, so it'll be interesting seeing precisely what Juffowup will be doing with this, outside, of course, of the Restore, as you mentioned.
Yeah. Flowing elects to lead with his Elder Gel this game. Honestly, I'm not sure why he didn't do this last game. Elder Gel lines up so well into Dos Equis' lead, hitting all of his monsters hard and being able to cure its own debuffs. You see there, it gains an age stack and gets rid of that weakness.
One thing that it might have that might really help out Juffowup in this situation is Jolly Spirit, a sometimes overlooked passive that means that a lot of the support elements, non-offensive actions that some of these monsters will do, will actually have a discount on their usage, which is going to be very important for the sustain that we found FlowingJuffowup kind of missing the mark on in our previous game.
Yeah, he's able to get that mana reduction on one of the most expensive skills in the game, Mega Restore, which removes 3 debuffs from all allies. That's one of the things that Scorch brings to the table. It's a very rare ultimate, and Scorch happens to have it, which really helps here against these debuffs. But even so, Flowing in his first couple of turns hasn't been able to break through Dos Equis' defense. And the debuff damage is starting to pile up, but with 2 Restore users on Flowing's team, he'll have an easier time getting rid of those.
A very fortunate Restore right there, removing both of the procs of weakness that were presently on Elder Gel. Obviously, the combination of them does eliminate all of it, but it can always be concerning if you do not have enough of an ability to cleanse some of the debuffs that have been applied when you suddenly have to deal with that one weakness stack that's just inhibiting your damage dealer, when it's kind of got the flack, if you will, or the chaff of a number of separate other still important debuffs, but that aren't as central to limiting your capacity to KO the opposing side. As this Fireball slams in, and with the bleed, it
he gets
take down the Yowie
on the main hit. Yeah. I will say Flowing made a very aggressive play there, though. Using both of his Restores on his damage dealer means that King Blood himself is very exposed, and with his debuff weakness, he actually just dies to those poison.
Would you describe that as an overextension?
It's a little bit tough, right? You need to break up Dos Equis' formation, or else he's just going to knock you out. I would have liked to see Scorch use his restore on the King Blob, knowing that he got both of the weakness debuffs down.
Mm-hmm.
He also has Thunderstorm on his Elder Gel. Sometimes we see, specifically going up against these tanky teams, we see them take Voltage, which would help a lot here trying to take out this Thornish.
Yeah, I don't believe that this Elder Gel has any other single target electric damage, well, wind damage, that would allow it to break through this Thornish as easily. Now, we do still have some elements of buffering from, say, Oculus that can at least apply some additional charge stacks to the remainder of this team, and there certainly is some existing charge support with Fuel on Scorch as well, adding some reasonable charges here. We're up to 34 on Elder Gel now.
Yeah. And we see, once again, the Mega Restore cleansing so many debuffs, just Scorch being so helpful here.
Absolutely.
So, but now Flowing needs to make his choice of attack, and without a really good target, he's going to go for the Encapsulate, try and preserve those charge stacks for a bigger attack later.
If nothing else, it's also keeping the Elder Gel safe throughout these debuff waves that we're seeing here, meaning that it can afford to miss a couple turns of restores and take some damage over time, comfortable in the fact that it has this shield already present, and it's just going to keep gaining age stacks. It's just going to hit harder when it finally gets around to it. It's looking like we're waiting for infinity stacks again, though.
Yeah, and I would say Elder Gel is an even better monster than Eagle at just really exploding out with damage as soon as that first infinity stack shows up. We also see another benefit of Scorch. It has buff mastery, and normally it uses that to just set up the might and sorcery buffs from full offense, but buff mastery applies to every buff, and Elder Gel now has 2 stacks of agility, and we'll soon have 2 stacks of spell shield, and that'll help it out a lot. Just 30% natural dodge is not to be underestimated.
Absolutely. It's going to do a lot towards keeping it alive. Once again, consistently, Elder Gel is described as one of the most difficult to remove from the board damage dealers when it is effectively set up, and that's only going to make it harder with those stacks of evasion. Additionally, that also gives it an extra stack of sorcery on top of its own multi-sorcery, getting it up to 4 separate applications of that.
Yeah. And then the fact that it also has debuff resistance makes it such a difficult monster to remove for these debuff stall teams. But so far, it hasn't been able to actually get the damage in. We see Thunderstorm not predicted to do that much damage. Fireball not predicted to kill Thornish and risks the fish scales with Flowing's only source of Purify already gone.
Oh, that is... well, hold on. I keep thinking that Oculus has Purify as well. But yes, with this in mind, it is even more important to ensure that when you take that down, you can afford to take that hit, since, of course, the damage reflect as well puts us in exactly the same situation that we saw previously with Eagle. Obviously, Elder Gel is a bit more capable of taking that hit in kind, but I believe that also still counts as neutral damage on the bleed, right?
The bleed is no type damage, so the Elder Gel's neutral weakness does not affect it there. But if it's still going to get knocked out by its own attack if it tries to attack into Thornish just with so much damage. We do see the first Infinity stat coming through, so this is really Flowing's time to shine. You see he's running out of mana. The poison with Poison Nerves and Chill and needing to use level 5 Restore over and over again has finally caught up to Oculus and Scorch. So Flowing is very much running out of time.
That said, we are seeing these damage calculations get more and more in his favor as the preview for Fireball effectively predicts just a massive kill on any targeted hits. Will we see Flowing maintain those charges trying to get the Thunderstorm? It looks like we're seeing that again.
Yeah. Now, if Flowing does get the full team wipe here, he's massively favored because Dos Equis doesn't have 3 monsters he can bring in. Now, of course, if Dos Equis got the same, he would be hugely favored, but Dos Equis' team is not really built for getting a big team wipe, whereas Eldergel absolutely has the possibility.
At this point, though, we're down to the wire. As you've been saying, the absence of mana on Flowing's supports is starting to take its toll, as we do see debuffs continue to be applied here, and we're starting to run out of the capacity to remove them. We get our antidote. Unfortunately, it does remove the weakness alongside everything else.
Will he go for the Thunderstorm now that it's predicted to take out the Thornish, or is he going to wait one more turn? Looks like he's going to wait one more turn, uses the antidote.
Up to 103 charge stacks on the Elder Gel. This is certainly one large hit that's incoming. Unfortunately, like, once again, it's a very narrow window that we're seeing here, as these debuffs are not going to be quitting, and now we're up to 3 stacks of weakness alongside Chill once again, and Armor Break on the Oculus and the Scorch, which is a particularly rough thing to see.
Yeah, I'd almost like to see Dos Equis start using Poison Eater on that Oculus and try and take that down, but ooh, that looks like a juicy damage preview.
That is one upside of seeing people rack up the Infinity Stacks the way that we're seeing them right now, is that you really get treated to some absolutely breakneck gameplay at the end of these setup turns.
Yeah, and eventually, with all of these Infinity Stacks, these supports on Dos Equis' side are going to start dealing the damage. Druid Oak also has Aging, which means that it's been building up the power right alongside Eldergel, and of course it's not built as a damage dealer, but 10 Age stacks is still a lot.
10 Age stacks, and of course the 4 Infinity Stacks on top of that means that the Soul Beam and the Acid Rain on that will still probably clap. We also still, of course, as you've been saying, have the Poison Eater on Thornish, even Slime Volley from Blob King can still potentially net some reasonable additional damage on top of that.
Yep. Flowing still debating. Ooh, that looks like a tasty Bubble Deluge. If he doesn't get the misses and gets the bleed procs he needs, he might be able to wipe here, but he realistically has one shot at this because he cannot build up 137 charge stacks again. And he's going to wait.
The big challenge here is, as we've discussed previously, the spell shield on all 3 of these monsters means that it's just that less likely for Flowing to net the full weight of the KO that he's looking for here.
Yeah. I will say, though, I feel like Dos Equis isn't really playing as if he's the one on the clock, because he is. Eventually, Eldergel is going to get powerful enough to one-shot all of these monsters. And Dos Equis needs to do something before that happens.
Would you say that he's kind of gambling on the fact that Flowing's going to go for this play, and then he's anticipating that he's just not going to get all the kills?
Well, looks like now's the time to find out. And we do see huge damage onto the monsters, but that bleed proc from Blood Magic must have been caused by one of the ancillary hits, and not from the main attack, because King Blob survives. And now Dos Equis really needs to make something happen. This is the turn he's been waiting for. And he is able to get the full team wipe, but Flowing is able to come back. After so many turns of trading stall moves back and forth, this game has just exploded.
Oh, goodness, of course. With Salahammer being in the back alongside Eagle, these are 2 monsters that can presumably take advantage of this opening. Obviously, once again, Madlord is priority number 1 here. As it is certainly capable of dishing out damage, as we saw from that board wipe through Cataclysm, but the Thunderstorm does effectively prove lethal to the entire rest of Dos Equis' team.
Alright, and this begins the 3rd game, and we see Dos Equis switching it up this time. He's brought the absolute dark horse of the tournament, Worm, widely regarded as one of the worst monsters in the game because of how unreliable his damage is. But if he hits and gets his RNG passives, he can do incredible damage.
Given the consistency of some of what it's performed with in the first turns of, say, the semifinals previously, would it be reasonable to say that perhaps it's not running all of its stacks of ballistics?
Possibly. I just feel like you almost have to run ballistics with Worm. It's such a large damage increase, and I feel like if you're not running all of his damage stuff, you might as well be running something else. Because, hybrid Worm, tanky Worm, not going all in on damage Worm, is a role better played by another monster, like Elder Gel.
That makes sense in terms of making sure that you're actually playing to its strengths. Speaking of playing to its strengths, we do see a quick turn 1 snipe onto the Eagle. I don't believe we had a full Phoenix pop right there, but it was certainly a shot at it.
Yeah, we see different teams coming out by both players. So Das Equis, realizing that his strategy of just hurry up and wait hasn't been working, is running a light-shifted King Blob and has led with Vizuki, who is immediately going to take a Thunder Strike and die. No taunt, which is good for flowing. But once again, Das Equis changing it up. He has heal charging to buff his Mad Lord. He's going to set up, and he's going to start attacking right away. Corrosive Jabs does take out the Eagle, so the Phoenix Affinity was procced on a previous turn.
Okay, so that does mean that the tackle from earlier did pop that. I didn't quite catch that before, but it's certainly a very good thing for Das Equis not having to worry about the massive damage output from Eagle. Now we just have to see that again. Unfortunately, we don't have a tackle to provide the same immediate burst from this, but we do still have a variety of strong damage sources from Das Equis' current team. We're certainly seeing it in the fast gear variant right now.
Yeah. Though, while Mad Lord is known for having its high damage, it does have one of the best debuff passes in the game in Blood Drive, which causes the debuffs to have a chance to apply a bleed stack equal to how much damage they did, and that basically doubles the amount of damage they do. However, the reason it's not seen as much in this role as a monster like Arachlich is because it's comparatively very frail. So Das Equis needs to keep it alive this turn from an Elder Gel attack that looks projected to take it out. Here's the Fireball, no taunt, no dodge, takes out Mad Lord.
One of the downsides of playing a monster that is weak to literally everything that isn't a debuff is the fact that if you don't keep it safe, it is just going to go down. But, I mean, it is certainly a feast or famine monster. Speaking of feast or famine, though, the Worm has hit the
Worm, and here comes the beating. And actually is able to bring Elder Gel down to Phoenix Affinity, and we see 2 wound stacks, probably applied by severe hit, penalizing its healing. King Blob will be able to get rid of those, but probably not heal Elder Gel to full this turn.
This is very important for FlowingJuffowup to sort of respond to right now. Elder Gel is his best remaining damage dealer. We do still, of course, have Salahammer in the back. It can do that job, but it's not going to do it nearly as well as Gel or Eagle can in this circumstance. Of course, Worm is frail, and there is the opportunity for a bit of a counterattack here, but we do have taunt available from the Thornish that is a bit concerning.
We also see 30% dodge. Worm doesn't hit that often, but is also reasonably hard to hit. Fireball misses the Worm. That's really big. That gives Worm another opportunity to fire off a potentially devastating attack. More buffs coming on, crucially Might and Glory. And here comes the beating. Gets just enough crits to take down that Elder Gel. And now Flowing has to bring in Salahammer.
This is massive for Das Equis. The Salahammer at this point is going to be hard-pressed to perform the same amount of damage into Das Equis' team. It doesn't have the same variety or versatility as Elder Gel would in terms of hitting, say, the Thornish and the King Blob.
Now the one thing it does do is it kills Worm much better than Elder Gel does, because it can just Spark Shower and ignore the Worm's dodge. But how is it going to take out this Thornish?
Yeah, that's the problem there. It's like, yeah, the Spark Shower is awesome, and it's certainly going to help with this particular issue, but we still have 3 supports that are going to be a bit of a problem to take down here.
Yeah. So Spark Shower looks like it is projected to take out the Worm if it doesn't get taunted. Here we go! And just barely Cascade with Salahammer's extra hits, often making it so that those last couple of hits are what takes out your monster, and indeed... But now we're sort of at the place we were at the start of these previous games, where Flowing has to break through Dos Equis' massive defense.
And as we're seeing, he's certainly on the disadvantage in terms of how many debuffs are presently on these monsters. We have chill on all of them, meaning that the mana concern is just that more present. The stacks of Tether on Salahammer aren't helping either, and are definitely the target of these Purifies, making sure that that minus damage on those is not something that's going to further hinder FlowingJuffowup in these crucial turns. Replenish coming out from the Oculus will further help the entire team through spreading charge.
Yeah, but once again, we see he doesn't have enough mana for the highest level of either of his attacks. So even though Salahammer does reasonable damage, he just can't use the attacks he needs. So forced to use an antidote. And King Blob is reasonably weak, with two potential, not exactly the attackers I was hoping for, but Oculus damage is reasonable. Here comes the Hades. And not a ton of damage, but is able to apply a whole bunch of debuffs.
I was going to say, this is one of those circumstances where the damage really came more from the fact that the King Blob is certainly very weak to debuffs, and that was a massive number of them that Dark Oculus did just spread there. And it's especially with Hades, suddenly meaning that you suddenly have all of those on all of these monsters, means that suddenly you're forced to prioritize where your antidotes and restores are going in a circumstance where you really want to keep Salahammer online, and you also need to make sure that nothing else dies here.
Yeah. So, Flowing does just need to take out one thing. Once Dos Equis is down to two monsters, only having two actions will severely punish him. But right now, the damage previews are not looking good at all, and Flowing needs to build up some charge to try and make some offense happen.
Oh boy, are we going to be hunting for infinity stacks again? Because this is looking even more troublesome for FlowingJuffowup, maintaining his momentum to that point, if that's the case.
Yeah, I don't think Salahammer can take out any of these monsters without at least two infinity stacks.
Which is a grim prospect for FlowingJuffowup, maintaining that position long enough to do that, as we see half of well over half after actual dot ticks of his King Blob's health vanish before his very eyes.
Yeah, and in addition to just doing the damage, this forces Flowing to use King Blob's Restore on Blob himself, which means he isn't able to use it on Salahammer, he isn't able to use it on Oculus, and that will probably force him to use a antidote or potion with Salahammer.
Yeah, the weakness is still on Salahammer, which is very, very important to remove on a monster that is nowhere near as high octane a damage dealer. Obviously, it's still very important then as well, but like when we're working with what is effectively a combo builder being forced into position 3, then you absolutely need to clear any obstacle that you have for that. In the meantime, Dos Equis is basically capable of cementing his position at this point. Much in previous games, FlowingJuffowup is not in a position where he can appropriately pressure back into this until those infinity stacks really start building here. We are on 2, however, now.
Yeah, I do like this play from Dos Equis, trying to target down the King Blob. What he doesn't want is to take down, say, the Oculus and leave Flowing with 2 monsters with Restore. He would rather make sure Flowing only has 1 monster with Restore so that these debuffs can continue to pressure. But we are starting to get to the point now where, by the power of Infinity Stacks and a ton of charge, Salahammer can start pressuring things, but it has to attack into a potential Thornish Protect.
Yeah, and unfortunately, there is nothing a Salahammer can do to hit that extraordinarily well. Cold Toss means that you're not resisting that, but Cold Toss doesn't reflect nearly as well in terms of damage predictions as Spark Shower would, despite Spark Shower being, of course, resisted by our big prickly fish over here. Another Hades coming out, reapplying a whole mess of debuffs there. We see 3 poison stacks onto the Oculus, 2 burn, and some more armor break there.
Yeah, though I will say, Flowing is the one who has time on his side. If this goes, 10 more turns, Flowing will eventually win. He has more monsters, and he has Revive, and he has what can be, if generously called, a damage dealer.
That's fair. That is another thing that Scorch brings to the team. In being in the back, it is going to be capable of providing those revives. And it does look like the King Blob is finally stabilizing here, which is very important.
Yeah, and Dos Equis, he can apply he can do a bunch of healing. He can keep his monsters alive and debuff the enemy for a long time. But none of those things actually get him closer to winning the game if Flowing is able to just continuously heal himself up. And eventually, these infinity stacks will mean that that strategy doesn't last forever. Now, Flowing has to be very careful with when to make his move. If you're a charge stack team, that means you have to wait a long time in between these big attacks. And with infinity stacks in play, attacking at the wrong time can be a big detriment. But Flowing will eventually get there.
Certainly, as we've seen before, Flowing's been very perceptive in terms of waiting for exactly the right moment to strike, as we've seen with the board wipes in previous games.
Yeah.
Hopefully, we will see exactly the same degree of prescience from him in this match, because it's certainly looking like it's a thinner margin this time with the tether lowering damage, the weakness lowering damage. Dos Equis is doing a lot to try to limit the windows that Flowing will have inside this. As you say, though, eventually we do need to see Dos Equis actually take something down here. With the King Blob not looking as pressured, it's not looking like there's as much of a capacity for Dos Equis to maintain the position that he had roughly 3 turns ago.
Yeah. And unlike Flowing, Flowing's supports are slowly building up charge stacks. Oh, here comes the meteorite shower, big damage, and is able to take down the King Blob, and at that point, Flowing forfeits. So, on to game 4. Dos Equis is going to take the first turn again, and he's going to run back the same strategy. Going to bring in Druid Oak this time, but he realizes, I can't just wait. I can't just let Elder Gel build up to infinity stacks. I have to start attacking.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what he's going to try and do.
We have seen that Dos Equis' team is certainly at its best at this point when it's able to appropriately reposition between its fast and slow components, but that does mean spacing them between those, as opposed to the overly aggressive board that we saw at the start that just got wiped before it was able to finish the job.
Yeah.
And
we see the corrosive jabs from Madlord burn, even though it was resisted, even though it's not the highest damage status condition, was barely able to take down that Salahammer. So the hero from the last game isn't going to be able to show up, but this means that Flowing will have access to Elder Gel.
That is some silver lining on that cloud. A turn 1 KO on such an important combo builder can be a pretty dire thing to see right at the beginning here, but we do still have, of course, both of FlowingJuffowup's damage dealers, and honestly, this is looking like a good position for Oculus and King Blob to sort of keep things stable inside this, with a number of separate restore options available and a really strong charge contingent here. There should be a lot of options for Spectral Eagle to crack this open. That said, Oak and Vasuki are sitting here looking at how many debuffs they can throw onto the enemy team, and we're already getting an absolute plethora of them.
Yeah, here comes Tackle from Vasuki. Not great luck with those hits, but is able to apply some debuffs. Unfortunately, we don't see that many wound stacks coming out. Vasuki has severe upkeep, which gives a 50% chance on burn or poison to apply a wound stack, and that would force Flowing to go for a Purify before he can really heal. But here we see Eagle looking at his damage previews, probably can't take out Vasuki this turn, but an explosion might be able to take out Druid Oak.
That weakness is really messing up the previews that we're seeing on JuffowUp's side here. And thanks to that, also we're seeing that the Druid Oak's actually capable of taking that explosion based on these examinations.
Yeah. So Flowing needs to decide his move, goes for the Ball Lightning onto Vasuki, and it just barely survives. 5 stacks of regeneration go a long way to healing it up. And now it's back at full, and it didn't use its ultimate last turn, but it looks like it's not going to use it this turn either. Goes for the tackle again. Still not greatest luck with severe upkeep, but is able to severely weaken Eagle again.
Yeah, we need to see a double dip on the focused purifications here, as we see the Restoring Wand from our Encapsulate Oculus saving Spectral Eagle from having to deal with the same indignity of having to throw down damage while still bearing one single weakness stack, which, as we've seen, does so much to mess up these damage.
Yeah, but really, really good for Flowing here. He's able to go for the explosion, take out Druid Oak, and that means that Dos Equis will not have access to revive this game. On the other hand, Dos Equis is able to hit back with a big tackle from his Bazooki, breaking Eagle's Phoenix affinity. And the debuffs are starting to pressure King Blob too. He can't just keep healing Eagle every turn.
We've seen this before. Once it gets to roughly half health, suddenly this King Blob is in severe danger because it's not going to take too many hits to knock that down if it still has the 2 shock procs, the 3 poison procs, and the burn. That's a lot of separate dots that will all be taking their toll.
Yeah, Dos Equis has the triumphant worm in the back. He's probably going to use Bazooki here to build some combo. Yes, he will. Not a ton of debuffs, but here comes a rocket launch. And the lucky 7 critical hit is able to take out Oculus almost from full, as well as finishing off the King Blob. Now Flowing is down to his 2 aging damage dealers and Scorch. But that worm, I never thought I'd be saying this, that worm is looking really scary.
Honestly, the rocket launch was really terrifying there, being able to take out both of the very crucial supports that Flowing had there. Scorch in the back is still able to at least keep the lights on here and, keep the wolves at bay. But the problem is that neither of these damage dealers really like being in a combo role. We do have, of course, Whirlpool and to a certain degree Voltage and things like that to ensure some combo building from Elder Gel, but that's not necessarily the same thing you like to see there. You like to see your Elder Gel be in a position where it can have that focus and attention.
Yeah, here comes the Thunderstorm, doesn't want to risk the taunt, and does take out the worm. And it seems like at that point, Dos Equis forfeits. So Flowing is able to take this 3-1.
That was breakneck.
Yeah, that was a very interesting mix of games that I thought would last forever, and games where monsters were flying all over the place. So that was a really good match. I think Flowing played that very intelligently, knowing when to wait, knowing that he was the one who had time on his side, and he was able to ride that to a 3rd place finish in this tournament.
Absolutely. So, it was a very good thing to see FlowingJuffowup not get cowed by the feeling of not being able to strike back effectively into Dos Equis' slow form when that was presented in those circumstances. The fact, of course, that in some of those games it was the last remaining bastion was, another thing that I think really helped FlowingJuffowup there. As we've seen, though, Dos Equis, when we get that worm out, can be a terrifying thing. But as we said earlier, it's very much a double-edged sword.
Yep. So, we shall see you all very soon for the finals of the tournament. Until then, have a good one.